Sometimes when I push the little record button to start one of these, I have no idea what I'm going to say. I always just pray that I might be helped and that what I say might be meaningful. And I have to confess that for the most part, when I have finished one of these, I have had a good feeling. It's not been the kind of feeling that said, you shouldn't have done that, or you really messed up, or shame on you. It's been a good feeling. And when I go in and start the actual upload process, I reflect back on what I might have, what I said, and what some of my thoughts were, and how they may have come across to you as you listened, and actually who you are. I don't know that. I don't know in which decade or century or day or week this might actually be watched, or if it'll be watched at all. But it still gives me a good feeling knowing that I feel like I'm doing something that is beneficial and productive and for a good cause. I hope you have that same kind of a good feeling. I know I'm a little bit hard to listen to sometimes, and some of my ideas you might think, wow, he's really getting out there with this one or whatever. But all I ask you to do is do the same thing that I do when I hear something that might be, if I happen to present something that might be a little strange or whatever. The approach that I take is that if I can't quite grasp it, or I think it might not be on target, unless you can just feel that it's evil, and then throw it away. But if you say there might be something to it, but I sure don't get it yet, that's okay. That's okay. Trust me, that's okay. The approach that I take when I have that, and it happens all the time with me, is that I think of a little shelf. And so I take that concept and I'll say, I don't get it. I don't buy into it right now. There might be something to it, but if there is, I don't see it. But rather than simply discard it and never bring it to mind again, I like to think of myself as putting it up on that shelf in my mind. And then I go on and live my life. And I'm always, in my prayers at night, I always include these words. It's not like it's the only words I say, but I always include the words that I might be able to discern truth and discard deception. And so I have to trust in the Lord that He'll help me to do that. And you have to do the same thing. Even with the things that I might say or introduce here, you might have to say, well, I don't get it right now, but please take the approach that I've mentioned, that set it on the shelf. Then do like I do, live my life. And when something else comes along, you think, oh, that was similar to something I heard so-and-so say, or that I thought about and didn't get. And now here it is again, coming back, and isn't that interesting? And sometimes you can see the Lord's hand in bringing things to your recollection, or exposing you to things that you haven't been exposed to before. I have never been one to just gobble up what everybody else tells me. I just never have been that way. And I would hope that you're not that way either, because eventually you have to have ownership. And it's pretty hard to have ownership on something that you never even thought about. You just gobbled it up. Something somebody else said or did or whatever. And yet I see our society doing that all the time with fashion, with diets and food, drugs, and makeup, and like I said, clothing styles, vehicles we drive, entertainment we watch, how we watch it. All these things are kind of, if you start thinking about them, are kind of just, many of them are just imitated from somebody else. And I don't mean to say that imitation is a bad thing, but imitation for imitation's sake has the makings of being a bad thing, if you follow what I'm saying. To duplicate something that somebody else did, like, maybe your mother or your sister or somebody else taught you how to fry an egg a certain way or make an omelet. And so you do it and it tastes good, and so you do it again. And even though you you did kind of imitate what somebody showed you, you take over ownership of it. It becomes your omelet, I guess is what I'm saying, even though it's a repetition of what somebody else said. And sometimes ideas, concepts are the same way. I want, for just a minute, I'm going to read something to you that it was a confirmation to me, and I just read it 2 or 3 days ago for the first time, even though I've read a lot about this particular writer. His name is C.S. Lewis. You can look him up. He's famous. He's a famous Christian analogy proponent. He's a very independent thinker. He doesn't go with the crowds on a lot of things. But sometimes you find out when somebody's thinking, and like I said in my last video upload about meditation, people can meditate independently and come to the same conclusion, have the same truths made known to them. And I was reading this the other day, and it kind of confirmed some of the things that I've been talking about on here, particularly as it pertains to charity, those 12 virtues. If you've forgotten them already, then I've wasted a lot of time. But because this channel is called Me, Thee, and Charity, so I'm going to keep unapologetically returning to it. But charity is the pure love of Christ, and it has, like I said, I just held up those 12 virtues that I came across, and I've told you in other video uploads why those are so central to what I think my life's all about. And maybe it's time for another review where I can pull all this together and try to start from scratch and build it all in the time it takes to make one of these, though it's pretty hard to include that much in a short time. But those virtues are very important to me because they're charity and they're a pure love of Christ. They never fail us. And I read this by C.S. Lewis. Like I said, look him up and see if you can figure out whether you buy into some of his sayings. He doesn't belong to the same church that I belong to, and I'm not sure if he's had any exposure to it or not, but this is what he had to say in a book called Mere Christianity. And he's written lots of books. but this is just one of them. And this is just one paragraph out of that book. And then I'll listen to it as I read it to you and see if you can tell why I focused on this tonight, why it's important. It says this: the church exists. Now, again, he and I don't belong to the same church, but we're both Christians. And he said this: the church exists for nothing else but to draw men unto Christ, to make them little Christs, to make them little Christs. I'm going to read those lines again. The church exists for nothing else but to draw men unto Christ, to make little Christs. So you think about all the things that the church does, all the programs, all the activities, all the scout camps and the games and the lessons and activities and ministering and all that kind of thing. You can throw in anything you can think of that the church does, right down to the bricks and mortar that make the building up that you go to. The shingles on the roof, the carpet on the floor. The church exists for nothing else but to draw men into Christ, to make them little Christs. If they are not doing that, all the cathedrals, clergy, missions, sermons, even the Bible itself are simply a waste of time. God became man for no other purpose. God became man. You've heard of the condescension of God. God became man for no other purpose. And then he goes on to say this: it is even doubtful, whether the whole universe was created for any other purpose. So when you're out there looking up at the stars, when you see the vastness of the skies and the heavens and the stars sprinkled up there, and when you read about the trillions upon trillions, and now with the new telescopes, the James Webb telescope was the last one to go up. Before that, it was the Hubble telescope. Showed us these pictures of the vastness of everything. Trillions upon trillions, not of stars, but of galaxies. Countless numbers of galaxies. If you ever see some of the pictures that are shown of them, and you can Google them, you can look them up. It just makes you drop your jaw and think, holy cow. And again, it makes you ask some very fundamental questions. Who am I in the mix of all that? Where did I come from? Why am I here? Where am I going, and how do I get there? For heaven's sakes, how do I get there? Well, I'm going to read back through this same thing that I just read you, and then first of all, I'll just point you to this again. 12, Moroni 7 and 45 is where I got those 12 virtues. 2 of them that are listed here go together. Rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth should be one item. So it makes a total of 12. And that those virtues if they're understood and incorporated, because I want to emphasize a word here. The church exists for nothing else but to draw men into Christ. To make them little Christs. Little Christs with his virtues. With his virtues. And I've said before, you'll hear me say it again, that we don't spend nearly enough time trying to think about how in the world am I going to acquire those virtues? And it tells us in the scriptures how. It tells us right in the Book of Mormon how. I mean, I wasn't going to read this, but if I can hurry and find it, I will. In Moroni chapter 7 is where you find those virtues, verse 45. And then if you go over and you go down from verse 45, I'll just review with you again, right along with C.S. Lewis and his comments, because we're talking about the same thing. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, this is after it names those 12 virtues. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, if you have not charity, you are nothing. If you don't become little Christs, you're nothing. You don't have to become them overnight. But that's your goal. That's what we're working for. Because that will never fail you, and everything else will. Wherefore, beloved brethren, if you have not charity, you're nothing. For charity never faileth, wherefore cleave unto charity. Cleave. It's a pretty strong verb, isn't it? Cleave. Cleave unto charity. Which is the greatest of all, for all things must fail. But charity is the pure love of Christ, and it endureth forever. And whoso is found possessed of it at the last day, it will be well with him. And then this part right here tells us how. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, pray unto the Father with all the energy of your heart. And I made an upload I've referenced at a time or two about all the energy of your heart. What that kind of prayer is like. I told a story to kind of set I won't go, just re-listen to that if you have a question about how you pray with all the energy of your heart. Wherefore, my beloved, pray unto the Father with all the energy of your heart, that ye may be filled with this love. The problem is we shouldn't get discouraged if we're only partly filled with it. If we're making progress. If today we have a little bit more in that love container and charity container than we did yesterday in those 12 virtues, those 12 different. Think of those 12 virtues as being 12 jars. If we have a little more in those today than we did yesterday, and a little more tomorrow than we're going to have today, then we're headed in the right direction. And believe me, if you're headed in that direction, you'll have peace in your life. I've witnessed it with my own experience with this, and studied and tried with lots of things. And there's times when I'll backslide and I'll have to regroup and repent and have that, what the Christ called for, is a broken heart and a contrite spirit. I'll have to humble myself and say, I realize I did something wrong. I won't do it again. This is what I did. I'll improve and do better. That's an important part of the process. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, pray unto the Father with all the energy of heart, that ye may be filled with this love, which he hath bestowed. And again, I emphasize the word bestowed. It's gifted. And who's it gifted to? Just you when you're working for it? Not necessarily. Because listen to what it says. Which he has bestowed. Let's see. Okay, here we go. That ye may be filled with this love which he hath bestowed upon all who are true followers of his Son, Jesus Christ. Have you heard that before in some of my uploads? It's been a constant. And if you got the message of it all, that little bell is designed to remind us to hearken, to hear and obey upon all of those who are true followers of his Son, Jesus Christ, that ye may become the sons of God, little Christs, that we may become little Christ, as C.S. Lewis says, that when he shall appear, we shall be like him. Like who? Like Jesus Christ. Little Christs. No, we're not going to have all of the virtues to the same degree that he has them just yet. But it says that ye might be filled, that you may be filled. Okay? If you hearken, if you hear and do, even little things as you go through the day and train your ear, get into the rhythm, always remember him, like it says in the sacrament prayer. That we may be like him, that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, for he shall see us as he is, that we may have this hope, that we may be perfect, even as that we may be purified even as he is pure. Amen. So it's a process of purification. And it comes back to this. President Nelson has said, hear him, that hashtag hear him, went all over the church for a while. It was the emphasis. Well, why? It's the emphasis because of what I just read. So when I start wondering if what I'm doing here is meaningful, if I should take a different direction, if I should stop, I keep having the thought when I read something like this from C.S. Lewis. It's a reaffirmation. You've heard me talk about lining the arrows up so that when enough of the arrows start to line up in the same direction. Well, in this case, the C.S. Lewis arrow, when I read it, aligned with those 12 virtues that I've been telling you about. And when those arrows start to line up, enough of them, it just reaffirms that you're moving in the right direction. And there'll be other reaffirmations. The biggest reaffirmation that you can get, I have found, is to hear and do. And then just pay attention to see which one of those virtues the Lord might bestow. Like it says in verse 48. You bestow a little bit of kindness, a little less envy. We won't be quite so puffed up about ourselves. We won't take the biggest cookie on the plate. We won't seeketh our own so much. We'll be less selfish. We might have hope where all the indicators indicate that we shouldn't have hope. When we start to think about things. That we won't think about evil. That was one of them on the paper. Think about evil. What do you think pornography is? Can you look at pornography even for a little while and not think evil? Thinketh no evil. All of those things, all those virtues are designed to improve us and make us better. That's what we've talked about here so many times. It's how the arrows line up. Other people like C.S. Lewis that have thought about this, that are renowned thinkers of their purpose in life and what Christianity is. Start to come to the realization of the same thing. If they are not doing, I'll read it one more time. The church exists for nothing else but to draw men unto Christ, into Christ, to make them little Christs. If they are not doing that, all the cathedrals, clergy, missions, sermons, the Bible itself are simply a waste of time. It doesn't say that they're bad. It's just saying that all those other things should help us do that. It's what the church does. It gives us opportunities and training and friends and friendships to help us become little Christs. God became man for no other purpose. It is even doubtful, whether the whole universe was created for any other purpose. Well, just some thoughts that I've had today about me, about this YouTube channel, about what I've tried to convey as I've sit here and talked about things. Sometimes my uploads have been just on personal things that have happened to me, and give you a little background about what I've done in my life that gave me experiences and brought me along. Maybe you could see that with some of them, maybe you couldn't, I don't know. Me experiences, I've called those the experiences, and I've said that the sometimes could be another person, could be you, could be things, other people that have entered into my life, or the could be a capital D, experiences I've had when I've been influenced by God and God, when I've felt that influence. Gospel means good message. When I have felt good messaging to my mind. And quite often in nature, like I said in the last upload, sometimes in nature is where that happens, or President David O. McKay says is one of the most sacred entrances into the presence of the Lord. You say, well, is that even possible? Well, how will you know if you don't try? Set it on the shelf, come back to it when it all makes sense. Then it tends to be motivating. Well, it's good. Sometimes when I talk here, it seems like I'm talking to a friend, face to face almost, even though I'm looking at my own face when I talk. I seem to be able to see you and feel you. I sense your goodness, the quality of your characters. the desire that you have to be now what we will call little Christs. Because that's the purpose of it all. All right. The purpose of it all also is to show love, and I hope you feel my love again tonight. You'll notice that I try to end these with a little statement on love, because charity really is the pure love of Christ. The kind of love in the dictionary doesn't fit the bill. But even when we hear love, if we think something different, maybe we think a dictionary definition, it still gives us a good feeling. So it might be that we're kind of hitting around the fringes of it. But even if you're hitting around the fringes of something, it feels good. Love feels good. The more you know about it, the better it is. May we all. Good night again. Come back.